There are moments in life we never realize we are living for the last time. A quiet morning. Sunlight brushing soft across the kitchen tiles, the gentle clink of a breakfast spoon, a backpack zipper closing, a small smile shared across the table. At the time, it felt ordinary, too simple to ever be sacred. But today, if I could go back, I would hold every second like it was the last breath of a miracle. My son, Hyan, was born on a rainy Thursday morning. The world outside was grey, heavy clouds hanging low like tired eyelids. Yet in my arms I held the brightest thing I would ever know. He did not cry loudly, not like other newborns. He opened his eyes and looked up at me, like he already trusted me to protect him, like he already believed the world could be gentle. He grew up with that same softness. Some children run loud, wild, ready to conquer the world with noise. Hyan walked like the world was a fragile glass he didn't want to break. He picked flowers only after they fell on their own, whispered goodnight to his toys so they wouldn't feel lonely, and placed cookies outside in case a hungry bird comes. Late, people say kindness makes a child weak. No, true kindness comes from quiet strength, a strength Hyan had carried in every breath. He was the kind of child who wiped his shoes at the door without ever being asked, the kind who thanked bus drivers, held doors open, and apologized when someone else bumped into him. And every morning, before school, he'd tap gently on my bedroom door. "Mom, breakfast?" Sometimes he already made it. Clumsy butter spread too thick on toast, a glass of milk filled just slightly too high, because he always believed more was better when giving to others. He would sit across from me, swinging his legs, too small to reach the floor yet big in spirit. "Do you think stars feel lonely during the day?" he once asked. I smiled then because the question was so him, tender, thoughtful, full of warmth for even things most people never think about. "No," I answered softly. "They rest, and at night they come back so we don't feel lonely." He nodded seriously, as if I had just told him a secret of the universe. That was Hyan, curious, gentle, alive in ways the world rarely understands. We lived a simple life, 2 cups on the dining table, 2 sets of shoes near the door, his drawings tacked proudly onto the refrigerator like priceless art. We didn't have much money, but we had joy, and when a home has love, it never feels poor. Our evenings were slow and familiar. Homework, warm tea, laughter at cartoons, bedtime stories. Every night, just before falling asleep, he'd whisper, "Mom, thank you for today," not because he was taught to, but because his heart always overflowed. Naturally, sometimes I wondered what I had done in this life to deserve a soul like his. Sometimes I feared how fragile happiness could be, but fear passes, peace becomes routine, and routine becomes memory without us noticing. Looking back now, I see all the tiny miracles I walked past thinking they were ordinary. His shoes left neatly side by the door, his jacket hanging slightly crooked, where small arms had tried their best, a half-finished glass of milk on the table, a pencil rolling in quiet circles near his homework notebook. Life wasn't loud. It was soft, quiet warmth, gentle mornings, shared laughter. I did not know softness could break. I did not know that joy could be stolen not in a dramatic flash, but through something slow, creeping, invisible, the cruel whisper of someone else's words. Back then, the world felt safe. People felt good. School was a place of learning, not a battlefield, and friends were simply friends. Hyan's school was small, a neighborhood building with peeling paint, bright playground sand, and teachers who smiled with tired kindness. Every morning he carried hope with him in his backpack, along with colorful pencils and worksheets folded too many times from his enthusiasm. He had one dream that never changed. One day, I'll become someone who helps people smile, not a doctor or astronaut, though he admired them, not a hero with powers, and though he loved stories, just someone who helped others smile, because happy hearts make the world Soft, he said once, happy hearts. What a beautiful idea, what a painful memory. Then life was a warm sunrise, evening walks, small hands in mine, pockets filled with little stones he called lucky treasures. He believed humans were made of good. Hilbara believed feelings mattered. He believed the world understood gentle souls like his. I believed, too, and on that last normal morning, and the morning I didn't, snow would change everything. He hugged me, longer than usual before leaving for school. Mom? Yes, love. I'm glad you're my safe place. It was such a simple sentence. I kissed the top of his head, smoothed his hair, and told him he was my greatest gift. He smiled, shy but glowing, then ran toward the school gate, backpack bouncing, shoes tapping the ground like tiny heartbeats. I watched him go the way I always did, unaware that some moments are goodbyes disguised as routines. If only I had known. If only I had held him a little longer. If only I had seen the storm hiding behind his gentle eyes. Maybe I could have saved him. But life doesn't give warnings, it only leaves echoes. And if only I knew that morning was the last time life would feel simple. The next morning looked like every other morning. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen counter, warm tea steamed softly in my cup, and the hum of life moved like a gentle river, slow, familiar, safe. Ayan walked in, hair still messy from sleep, tiny hands rubbing his eyes like he was wiping away dreams. But something was different. Just a shade, just a breath, just a small, quiet shift you only notice later, when it's too late. He sat at the table without humming his usual morning tune. My little boy, who used to talk about stars and flowers and stray cats, stared at his toast like it might fall apart if he touched it. "You okay, love?" I asked softly. He nodded too quickly. "Yes, just tired." Children lie differently. They don't hide truth. They protect it gently, like it's fragile glass they're afraid to drop. But I didn't know that then. I saw tiredness. I didn't see the tremble in his heart. I should have asked more. I should have looked harder. I should have listened to the silence between his words. But life pulls you forward. Bills, chores, deadlines, the rhythm of survival. Sometimes love gets quiet not because it's gone, but because we trust life too much. We think peace will repeat itself forever. He finished breakfast slowly, then stood up and whispered, "Mom, can I stay home today?" Gerd startled me. Ayan loved school, loved learning, loved people, loved the little world inside those painted walls. "Are you sick?" I asked, touching his forehead. No fever, no cough, just a quiet sadness swimming behind his eyelashes. "No, I just don't feel like going." I should have listened. I should have held him close. I should have noticed how tightly his fingers were gripping the edge of the table, as if the wood could anchor him to safety. Instead, I smiled softly, like parents do when they believe discomfort is temporary, passing, harmless. Sometimes we don't feel like going, sweetheart. But one day off makes the next day harder, doesn't it? He nodded again, eyes falling to the ground. I guess we walked to the school gate together. His hand felt small and smaller than usual, as if fear had shrunk him. There was no excited bounce in his steps today. His backpack looked heavier, though inside it held the same pencils, same notebooks, same dreams. At the gate he hesitated. "Mom?" "Yes, baby?" "If someone says something bad about me, you'll know it's not true, right?" The world stopped for a moment. Of course I should have pulled him close. Of course I should have asked who said what and why and how long, and how deeply it hurt. But sometimes answers feel obvious when we haven't yet learned the question. "Of course," I said. "I know who you are. You're my good boy." Those were the right words, but I didn't say the other words, the ones he needed. "Tell me everything. Who hurt you? I'm here. I'll protect you." Instead, I kissed his forehead and let go of his hand. He walked inside, shoulders slightly curled inward, like a leaf closing at dusk. I watched him. Something inside me whispered, "Go to him, hold him. Ask him again. But I trusted life, I trusted school, I trusted the world to be kind to my kind son. That evening, he came home quieter. He placed his backpack on the floor softly, like he didn't want to disturb the air. "How was school?" I asked. "Okay," he murmured, but the word felt empty, like a balloon losing air slowly. He didn't talk much at dinner. He didn't show me his drawings. He didn't ask his normal, curious questions. Instead, he cleaned the table without being asked, wiped his plate twice, and lined his shoes perfectly by the door, as if doing everything right could protect him from something wrong. Later, I stood at his bedroom door and watched him, his small body curled under the blanket, facing the wall. His shoulders moved in soft, uneven breaths. At first I thought he was sleeping, then I heard it, a tiny, almost silent sniffle, a quiet cry, the kind children do when they don't want to worry the person they love most. "Ayan?" I whispered, sitting beside him. He wiped his face quickly, turning with a smile too practiced for childhood. "I'm okay." "Mom?" His voice cracked on the last letter. I could feel something tightening around my heart, a thread pulling slow. "Careful, painful. You know you can tell me anything, right?" "Yes, you're safe with me. I know. Do you want to talk?" He shook his head and squeezed my fingers. "I don't want to make you sad. Children carry burdens they never should, not because they're forced, but because their hearts are too kind." I held him until he fell asleep, his small hand still gripping mine as if he feared I'd slip away. That night, I sat alone staring at the quiet walls, feeling worry walk in my chest like a stranger who had been waiting for the right moment to knock. I told myself it was nothing, just tiredness, just a long week, just growing up. We all do that, don't we? We look at cracks and pretend they are shadows. We see a storm forming far away and convince ourselves the sky is just thinking. But storms don't ask permission. They wait, they gather strength, they arrive when we are unprepared. Ayan whispered in his sleep that night, words I could barely hear. "Please, stop. I didn't do anything." I froze. Fear pressed cold fingers around my throat, but I didn't. "Wake him." I didn't shake him. Gently. And ask him to tell me everything. I didn't sit by his bed until morning like I wish I had. I should have. Instead, I kissed his forehead and whispered, "Everything will be okay," because I believed it, because I wanted it, because I didn't yet know the world can be cruel to gentle souls. The next morning, he smiled again, but it was the kind of smile that looked borrowed, not grown, a quiet smile, a protective smile, a child pretending the world hadn't changed. And I let myself believe him. I told myself it was nothing, but a small silence had already begun, and silence, when it comes from a hurting heart, is never small. There is a kind of silence that doesn't arrive suddenly. It grows quietly, like dusk fading into night while we blink and tell ourselves it's still day. Days passed, then a week, nothing dramatic, no shouting, no tears in the open, just a slow, soft drifting, like holding a balloon string and feeling it loosen from your fingers without realizing it's slipping away. Ayan still woke every morning. He still brushed his teeth, still wore his uniform, still packed his books carefully, as though neatness could protect his heart. But something inside him was dimming, a light flickering quietly, trying to stay alive without asking for help. He spoke less now, not out of anger. Ayan was never angry, he just folded inward. He started sitting at the edge of his chair instead of across from me, started eating smaller bites, started finishing his milk without being asked. Not from enthusiasm, but from fear of disappointing. Love used to live loud in our home. Now it whispered, and even that whisper felt tired. One afternoon, as we walked home, I noticed him tugging at his sleeves, hiding his wrists. He used to skip stones during our walk, sometimes humming, sometimes talking about the shapes he saw in clouds. But today he watched the pavement instead, as if it held all the questions he couldn't ask. "Did you make any new drawings today?" He shook his head. "Did you sit with your friends at lunch?" Another shake. Do you want ice cream? A pause longer than childhood should ever hold. Then a quiet nod, forced, polite, not joyful. He was trying for me, trying to still be the boy I knew, trying not to show the world had already begun wounding him. Later, I found a paper in his backpack, crushed slightly, edges worn from fingers that held too tightly for too long. It was a drawing, a stick figure standing alone under a grey cloud, raindrops falling only on him. The others in the drawing stood nearby, not hurting him, not touching him, just turning away at the bottom in clumsy, careful writing. It's okay to be alone if you don't bother. My heart cracked silently then, like glass under pressure, barely holding shape. I sat beside him that night while he colored quietly, not with joy but with habit. His crayons moved slowly, almost dutifully, like he believed he owed the world brightness, even when he had none left inside. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "is someone being unkind to you?" He hesitated, too long for innocence, too long for comfort. Then he whispered back, "It's not really being mean if they're telling the truth." The words didn't match his soul. They belonged to someone else, planted inside him like a seed of doubt. "Whose truth?" I asked gently. He shrugged, and that small, heartbreaking shrug children give when they've learned that speaking pain only makes it heavier. "I'm just not like other kids," he murmured. "They don't like kids who are soft." Soft. That word fell into me like a stone into still water, ripples spreading through places inside me I didn't know could ache. "You're not soft," I said. "You're gentle, and gentle is brave." He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. It sat there like something he'd been taught to place on his face, not something born from feeling. That night, he did not whisper his usual, "Thank you for today." He just lay there, hands folded on his pillow, breathing shallow, blinking slowly, like someone practicing being invisible. Silence filled the room. Not peaceful silence, but silence heavy with the things he did not know how to say and I did not know how to hear. At dinner the next evening, I tried again. "You can tell me anything," he nodded. "You know that, right?" He nodded again. "Talk to me, love." Another nod. No words. We weren't fighting, but we weren't finding each other either. Sometimes love doesn't shatter. It erodes quietly, piece by piece, like waves wearing away stone. He started going to bed earlier, started waking earlier, started packing lunch quietly, started tying his shoelaces without calling me for help. He was shrinking into independence, but not the proud kind, the survival kind. Then one morning, as we reached the school entrance, a boy walked by and murmured audibly, "Don't believe everything he says. He acts nice, but he's weird." Ayan flinched, not like someone startled, but like someone who expected pain and met it with silent surrender. I turned to confront the boy, but Ayan held my sleeve, shaking his head slowly, pleading softly, "Please don't. Fear not of the boy, but of being seen, singled out, exposed." I froze, torn between protection and trust. "Ayan," I whispered, "if someone is lying about you—" "They're not lying," he whispered back, voice trembling. "I just make people uncomfortable sometimes. No child should ever have to justify their existence, but he believed it. And worse, I believed him believing it. At home, I held him for a long time, arms wrapped around a body that felt lighter, smaller, more fragile than it had ever felt before. He didn't cry, he didn't speak. He just rested his head against me, breathing softly, like someone trying not to break the silence, because silence was safer than the truth. We sat that way until the light faded from the room, and somewhere in that quiet, I realized the distance between us wasn't anger. It was heartbreak neither of us yet understood. A long time ago he used to fill rooms with laughter, now rooms filled with whispers, and he stayed quiet, as if words themselves had become dangerous. We weren't fighting, but somewhere along the way we stopped speaking from the heart. Some days don't announce themselves as endings. They pretend to be ordinary. They wear the same sky. The same routine, the same quiet morning hum. But beneath the surface, life is already shifting. And we don't feel it until it's too late. That morning, Ayan woke early, earlier than me. He was dressed already, sitting at the table, shoes on, backpack zipped, staring at the wall as sunlight crept across his small face. No humming, no questions, no sleepy smile, just stillness. A stillness that felt like holding breath before breaking. "You're up early," I whispered. He nodded without looking at me. "I don't want to be late," he said, voice flat, practiced, like a child reciting the right answer instead of feeling it. There was no rush. We always had time, but children don't rush because of clocks. They rush because of dread. I made breakfast. Toast, eggs, warm milk, all the little comforts he loved once he didn't touch them. "Ayan," I murmured, sitting beside him. "Talk to me, please. Tell me what's hurting you." His lips trembled, not like someone about to cry, but like someone who already cried too much in silence. "I'm trying not to make problems," he whispered. That sentence, soft, innocent, breaking, cut deeper than any scream ever could. "You could never be a problem." I cupped his cheek. "You're my heart." He pressed his lips together, holding something in them, pain, truth, fear, all mixed. But before he could speak, my phone buzzed. A message from the school. "Please come in today. We need to discuss an incident involving Ayan." My stomach tightened, heartbeat sharpened. Quiet panic bloomed in my chest. I looked at him. He looked away, not guilt, not anger, fear, so deep even his eyelashes shook. "Ayan," I said softly. "What happened?" He swallowed hard. "Someone said I lied about them." "But I didn't, Mum. I didn't say anything." "I didn't do anything." His voice cracked like fragile glass. Before I could answer, a horn honked outside, the neighbor's carpool. "Go," he whispered quickly, standing. "If I'm late, they'll think I'm avoiding them." That word again, them. I touched his arm. "Wait, we can go together." "No." Sudden panic in his voice, then softer, trembling. "Please. I don't want them to think I need help." The world outside saw independence. I saw a child begging not to be noticed, because being noticed hurt. I kissed his forehead. "We'll talk after school," I promised. "We'll fix this together." He nodded, and slow, obedient, fragile, and walked out the door. I didn't know promises could break before they're even spoken fully. The school hallway smelled like old paint and tired. Floors, children's art on the walls. Colors bright. Innocence loud. Life too young to understand the weight hearts sometimes carry. The teacher greeted me stiffly. "We've had complaints," she began. "Some students say Ayan spreads unkind stories, that he pretends to be hurt for attention." I felt anger rise, sharp, protective, maternal. "Ayan doesn't even know how to hurt someone," I said, voice trembling. "I understand he appears gentle," she replied, politely detached. "But children sometimes manipulate without meaning to. Manipulate, a word that didn't belong anywhere near my son's name." "Did you ask him?" I whispered. "Did you sit with him?" She hesitated, just a moment, but it was enough. "He often looks emotional," she said, instead. "And sometimes sensitive children misread social interactions, sensitive, gentle, soft. Why do we treat these qualities like flaws?" I sat with the counselor next. She spoke in soft, professional tones, the kind meant to comfort but failing because they never understood the heart of the problem. "Ayan cries easily. He isolates himself. Children notice, but do they care? Do they protect? Do they understand? Some children bruise kindness without ever touching skin. They told me a parent complained that Ayan made their child uncomfortable by always trying to be kind. Imagine that kindness, treated like a threat while cruelty hid behind confidence. Then came the final blow. Another student says he spreads rumors to gain sympathy. Rumors, my son? Who apologized when someone else stepped on him? I felt something break inside, a soundless snap, like a branch wilting under unseen weight. Jan doesn't lie, I whispered. He doesn't even know how to be cruel. The counselor folded her hands politely. Sometimes children learn behaviors to cope. They spoke in circles, professional. Careful, distant, while my child drowned in silence. Then the principal said it. Perhaps if you talk to him sternly, he will correct the behavior. Correct. As though kindness was a defect. As though my child needed fixing for being gentle. I walked out before my heart shattered in public. When I got home, I sat alone on the couch. The house felt colder, quieter, like something sacred had already begun to leave. I waited for his knock on the door, waited to see his backpack drop, waited to hear his soft footsteps, his gentle voice, his familiar warmth. But when the door finally opened, he didn't run in. He walked slowly, like someone bracing for impact. His eyes searched my face carefully, like he was trying to read whether the world had turned against him completely. I opened my arms. He didn't move. He just stood there, fragile and exhausted, breath trembling. And then he whispered the sentence that will echo through my bones for the rest of my life. I didn't do anything. Mom, why doesn't anyone believe me? I should have held him, should have lifted him into safety, should have sworn to be his shield. But the school's voices still rang in my head, echoing doubt I never meant to allow in. Jan, I said softly, did something happen? Just tell me honestly, okay? His face broke, not in tears, in silence, in betrayal, in the soft collapse of trust. You think I lied too, he whispered. I reached for him, too slow, too late. He stepped back, a child stepping away from the one place he thought was safe. A wound so deep it didn't bleed. It drowned. No, I breathed. No, baby. I'm not saying that. But he had already turned, already walked to his room, already closed the door without a sound. Children don't slam doors when their hearts break. They close them, gently, as if even pain does not deserve noise. I stood frozen, the world around me silent still. Heavy, I didn't know it then, but that moment, that tiny, whisper-soft moment, was when the thread snapped. Life didn't explode that day. It just quietly collapsed. The house was quieter than it had ever been, and yet in that quiet every sound became sharper, heavier, almost unbearable. The soft ticking of the clock, the distant hum of the refrigerator, even the subtle creak of the floorboards beneath my feet, all of it screamed emptiness. Ayan's laughter no longer filled the rooms. His small footsteps, once a daily rhythm of life, had vanished into memories that now felt almost unreal, like they belonged to someone else's life. I wandered through the house aimlessly, passing his bedroom door again and again, each time stopping at the threshold, staring at the bed he used to sleep in, wondering if somehow he might still be there. Sometimes when I closed my eyes, I could almost hear him calling for me softly in the morning, the little tap on the door, his voice so light yet so full of presence. But the sound never came. The mornings, once filled with warmth, were now filled with a quiet that I could not bear, and every day I woke hoping, praying, that he would appear as if nothing had happened, as if life hadn't changed so violently in its subtlety. I found myself trapped in loops of memory, reliving moments that once seemed so ordinary, now turned sacred and untouchable. His small hands pressing butter too thickly on toast, the way he would hum softly while arranging his school bag, the little scribbles of his drawings that littered the refrigerator door. They were everywhere and nowhere at once. Each memory carried a weight of regret, a quiet ache that settled deep in my chest. I kept asking myself over and over, why didn't I notice? Why didn't I protect him? I remembered the first hints of distance, the subtle silences, the tiny hesitations before answering me. At the time I had dismissed them, telling myself it was nothing, that children grow through phases, that he was just sensitive. But I now understood that sensitivity is not weakness. It is a fragile, precious strength, and I had allowed the world to chip away at it while I stood by, believing in illusions of normalcy. Every day I replayed that final morning before it all broke. The look in his eyes when he asked me quietly, almost pleading, "Why doesn't anyone believe me?" That small trembling voice that I now remembered as the sound of my failure haunted me. I imagined the school hallway again, the teacher's polite but distant words, the accusations disguised as concern, the adults who should have protected him but failed to see the gentle truth. How could anyone believe that the sweetest soul could be accused of manipulation or deceit? And yet in the cruel machinery of the world, appearances often carry more weight than truth, and I had trusted appearances over him. I had let the bully's words seep into our lives, twist our trust and isolate my child when he needed safety most. That realization burned inside me relentlessly. Nights became the hardest. I would sit in the darkness of his room long after the house had gone silent, tracing the edge of his pillow, folding the blanket as he had done, and imagining his soft voice speaking to me once more. Sometimes I spoke aloud, as if words could summon him back, saying things I had never said when I had the chance. "I believe you. I love you. I am so sorry." But there was no answer. The room remained still, the silence heavier than ever. And yet, I could feel his absence not just in the empty spaces but in the air itself, thick, unyielding, impossible to ignore. Even ordinary things became unbearable reminders. His toothbrush still in the cup, his favorite cup left on the kitchen counter, the small drawings pinned to the wall that seemed to stare back at me with innocence and a quiet plea. I tried to move forward, to cope with the loss that was not just of presence, but of trust and understanding that had been stolen before my eyes. Friends said, "He'll come back to you. Give him space. He's just growing up." But they didn't understand. This was not a matter of adolescence. This was not a phase. This was the slow, devastating erosion of a child's faith in the world and the parents' faith in themselves. So I questioned every decision I had made. I retraced the mornings, the subtle signs, the words left unspoken. Every oversight, every assumption that he'll be okay became a dagger that pierced my heart anew. I realized that love alone, no matter how deep, cannot undo the effects of disbelief. I had loved him, yes, but love without understanding, without listening, without action, had not been enough. The days stretched endlessly, a monotony of grief punctuated by sudden memories. Sometimes I would see another child laughing in a park, or hear someone speaking gently to a small child, and my chest would tighten as though the air itself had turned to stone. I imagined Ayan in those moments, standing alone, unseen, unheard, carrying the weight of judgment he did not deserve. And I hated myself for not being enough, for not being there in the way he needed me to be, for allowing the world and his bully to teach him that gentleness was a weakness. The guilt was all-consuming, bleeding into every corner of my life. Yet slowly I began to understand that grief itself carries lessons, painful though they may be. I began to see the depth of what my son had endured, the courage it took for him to continue showing up each day, despite the subtle cruelty, the quiet betrayals, the isolation. Even in his silence, even in his retreat, there was bravery, an innocence and strength that I could scarcely comprehend, but which now inspired me to act differently in memory of him. I wrote letters I would never send, speaking to him as if he could hear me. "I am so sorry for not seeing the pain you carried. I am so sorry for believing the wrong voices. You are my heart, my soul, my light, and I failed you. But I will carry your strength with me, and I will honor you in every choice I make." Some nights I would fall asleep staring at his empty bed, feeling the ghost of his presence linger like a soft, unending ache. Other nights I walked through the quiet house, retracing the steps of his small routines, the rituals of a life that had vanished too soon. Each corner, each object, each memory echoed the love that remained, painful yet enduring, a reminder that even when someone is gone, their impact on your soul is eternal. Regret will not leave me, but neither will gratitude, for having known such a pure, gentle spirit, for having been loved by a child whose kindness was boundless, and for having the chance, however fleeting, to witness the beauty of his heart. Even now, the world seems a little dimmer, quieter, less forgiving. But through that darkness I have learned that grief is not only a weight, it is a testament to love, to connection, to the deep human capacity to feel. I carry Ayan's memory in every breath, in every careful action, in every effort to see the subtle suffering of others. I have become vigilant, not just in protecting children, but in believing them, in listening without judgment, in holding their small hands when the world seems unkind. His absence taught me what presence truly means. His silence taught me what words could never convey. And in this profound aching loss, I have found a kind of awakening, a fragile understanding that even in grief, love endures, echoing across the hollow spaces left behind. Some nights, I still whisper into the dark, hoping my words reach him wherever he is. You were the most beautiful soul I've ever known, and I failed to protect you. But I carry you in me forever. And though no answer comes, I feel a gentle warmth, as if he is telling me softly, without words, that even broken hearts can remember, can honor, can love beyond absence. That is the echo of what was lost, the sound of a child's pure soul lingering in the corners of a heart that will never forget. Healing, I have learned, is never a sudden revelation. It does not arrive with a golden sunrise or a single moment of clarity. Healing is slow. It creeps in quietly, like sunlight through a cracked window, until one day you realize you can breathe again without pain anchoring every heartbeat. In the months after Ayan left, I wandered through a landscape of memory and grief, trying to stitch together a life that had been torn apart by absence and regret. I still see him in every small gesture of kindness around me. A child helping another with homework, a stranger holding a door for someone else, a soft smile exchanged in passing. These moments remind me that the world still holds light, that gentleness is never truly gone, and that perhaps Ayan's spirit exists in every echo of love left unspoken but not forgotten. I started writing daily, long letters addressed to him that I would never send. In these letters, I spoke of the mornings I watched him grow, of the quiet moments at the kitchen table, of the laughter and warmth that once filled our home. I admitted my failures, my oversights, and my guilt, but also my gratitude for having loved someone so remarkable, so tender, so extraordinary. Writing became my refuge, a private ritual where I could pour my sorrow and my love into words, letting them form a bridge between his absence and my desire to honor him. It was not a cure, but it was a beginning, a way to remind myself that life, even when fractured, still has meaning when memory is honored rather than denied. Slowly, I began to reach out to other families, other children who were vulnerable, who faced the quiet cruelty of a world that too often mistakes softness for weakness. I became an advocate, not in anger but in love. I learned to listen without judgment, to validate the feelings of those whose hearts were fragile, and to teach them that their voice matters, that kindness is strength, and that no one should endure isolation or doubt in silence. In helping others, I found a form of healing for myself. It was as though each story I listened to, each child I comforted, each parent I reassured carried a tiny piece of Ayan's spirit forward. His gentle soul continued to shape the world, even when he could not speak, even when he could not stand beside me. Forgiveness became part of this journey, though it was never easy. I had to forgive myself first, my disbelief, my hesitation, the moments I failed to protect him when he needed me most. Forgiveness is not forgetting, nor does it absolve the pain. It is instead the act of choosing to love oneself despite mistakes, the commitment to carry the lessons forward rather than being paralyzed by guilt. I forgive myself for not recognizing the subtle signs sooner, for trusting the wrong voices, for allowing a bully's lies to overshadow the truth I had always known about my child. And with that forgiveness, I began to feel the first small stirrings of peace, a quiet hope that life could continue without erasing the memory of what had been lost. Healing also meant finding new ways to honor Ayaan's memory in daily life. I began small rituals, lighting a candle at sunrise to think of him, keeping a small notebook of his favorite quotes and drawings, planting flowers in the garden where he once loved to place petals and small treasures. Each act, seemingly insignificant to the world, felt monumental to me. It was a way to keep him close, to ensure that his essence, his love, and his gentle strength were never forgotten. These rituals became my anchor, helping me navigate days when sorrow threatened to pull me under, reminding me that though his body was absent, his spirit remained deeply woven into the fabric of my life. In time, the sharp pain of grief softened into a gentle ache, a constant companion that no longer consumed every thought but lingered as a reminder of love lost and lessons learned. I began to notice moments of joy again, a bird landing on the windowsill, the warmth of sunlight on my hands, laughter between friends who shared stories of hope and resilience. I allowed myself to smile, not as a betrayal of his memory, but as a tribute to it. Because Ayaan, in his pure, gentle way, had taught me the value of softness, the power of kindness, and the unbreakable strength of a loving heart. To live without remembering him fully would be the true loss, and so healing looks like this, sitting quietly in the spaces he once filled, feeling both sorrow and gratitude, speaking his name aloud, knowing that memory is a form of life, choosing compassion in a world that often misunderstands gentleness, and carrying forward every lesson his brief presence taught. Healing looks like remembering to trust children, to listen without judgment, to protect the vulnerable, and to honor love, even when it leaves a void. It is accepting that I cannot change the past, that some moments are irretrievably lost, but that I can choose how I live in the aftermath, how I carry the